What are stars in the MLP universe? In our world, stars are balls of gas burning billions of miles away. Our sun is a star, just a lot closer. But that's our world. The MLP universe is mythological. It's how we used to think our universe was. For one thing, it's geocentric, meaning the sun revolves around the world and not vice versa. Who knows, Equestria and the lands around it could even be on a flat disk, unlike the Earth. Ahem. Unlike the Earth. It seems like stars are one of those different things. Instead of giant and far, they're small and close. Little pinpricks in our sky dome. Consider our first reference to stars in the show. The legend of the Mare in the Moon ends with a prophecy that on the longest day of the 1000th year, the stars will aid in her escape. Sure enough, that's visually exactly what happens. This tells us two things. First of all, stars are close and much smaller than the moon. But secondly, and more importantly, the stars are personified. They're agents, moving, taking action, aiding. This is really interesting, and it makes me ask again, what are stars in the MLP universe? At least some of them seem to be, well, beings. As I've mentioned in the past, there's always a possibility this was a third royal sibling of the stars bailing out their sister, or even a parent bailing out their daughter. But to this day, there's no evidence for anything of the sort. It's remained a mystery, until now. So who could those stars be? Okay, you saw the title and thumbnail. It's Grogar, the tyrannical ram of old. Sounds crazy, I know, but hear me out. Let me show you why I think an event from the first season is tied to a character from the final season. Why I think Grogar was the group of stars that aided in Nightmare Moon's escape. Alright, if this is going to work out, we need to establish how the heck Grogar got up there. Because last I checked, he's flesh and blood, not a group of stars. Nor was he back when he ruled Equestria. But a lot of time has passed between then and now, giving us our window of opportunity. That's just the when. As for the how, we know Gusty the Great stole Grogar's bell and banished him long ago. But the nature of his banishment was never specified. Sure, it's possible he was sent to Tartarus, but that seems underwhelming for a villain of Grogar's status. Besides, a unicorn as powerful as Gusty the Great could have and would have used a stronger solution. I think she may have banished Grogar to the stars. Think about it. The only other being in space we've ever seen was Nightmare Moon, who was also banished there. The concept of being imprisoned in the stars isn't even new. There's mythological precedence for this in our world. Take the legend of Cassiopeia, for example. She claimed to be more beautiful than even the nymphs of the sea, so Poseidon, angered, cast her into the stars. Now just replace Poseidon with Gusty and Cassiopeia with Grogar, and you basically have what might have happened. Minus the claiming to be beautiful part. I mean, maybe, I wasn't there. It's weird to think of the sky as a prison, but it's a pretty effective one. You're completely separated from the world, having no power over the things going on beneath you. However, you may still have some power in your own realm, enough to aid in the escape of a fellow sky prisoner. Grogar has certainly displayed a vested interest in bringing down the forces of light in favor of darkness, and who better represents darkness than Miss Eternal Night herself? Grogar is the perfect candidate for those stars. He fits the when, the how, and the why. But if we're looking for some positive evidence, let's focus on the what. What exactly was Grogar during his time in the sky? A group of stars, yes, but more specifically, Grogar was a constellation. Surprisingly, there's evidence for this in Season 1. Ghostbusters introduces us to Ursa Minor and Ursa Major, Latin for smaller bear and bigger bear. What I find so fascinating about these two is that they canonize human constellations within the show's lore. And there's one human constellation that's especially relevant to our investigation. Aries, Latin for ram. That's what I think Grogar was. Gusty the Great turned him into the constellation Aries. Now, I know what you're thinking. Just because our world and the MLP world have two constellations in common doesn't mean we have the rest in common. The Ursas are only evidence for the Ursas. And to that I say, you're right. But in the very same season as Nightmare Moon's escape and the Ursa's debut, we get suited for success. The episode where Rarity lets the other five boss her on how to make their dresses for the Grand Galloping Gala. They end up looking pretty tacky. But take a look at Twilight's star-themed dress. She had demanded technically accurate constellations. And what do we see? Centaurus, Scorpio, Cancer, and lo and behold, Aries. This confirms that a ram constellation has existed in the skies of Equestria. An ancient ram tyrant and a ram constellation? They have to be connected. What if it was Grogar they've been looking up at all along? And what if those stars are the same ones that aided in Nightmare Moon's escape? Though this raises a good question. If Grogar was a constellation that whole time, why didn't he bail Nightmare Moon out sooner? She was up there for 1,000 years. Well, who says he would have been able to? Remember back in the first few seasons of the show, it became a joke that each villain's backstory started with 1,000 years ago. That must have been one heck of a year. Of course, this is just rounding on the storyteller's part, but it is strange that each villain popped back up around a millennia after their respective banishments. This got some people thinking that 1,000 years is just the time limit to how long these banishing spells can last. I think that's mostly true, but notice that it's not 1,000 years for each villain. Discord was banished before Nightmare Moon, yet returned after Nightmare Moon. Why? Because it's not just a 1,000-year timer. It takes more than just passing the expiration date. Something has to actively be done to set them free. Objects at rest stay at rest until acted upon by a Darn it, Newton, get out of my videos. But this is exactly what we saw with Discord. It took that little push from the Cutie Mark Crusaders to break Discord's spell. Perhaps Nightmare Moon's push was the Star's aid. Though unlike how the Cutie Mark Crusaders haphazardly set Discord loose without even knowing, Nightmare Moon's escape was premeditated. The 1,000th year arrives and she's out. Like when you open the microwave door right when it beeps. Just me? Anyway, this wasn't an accident. It was foretold in prophecy after all, and for someone as mindful and calculating as Grogar is, I wouldn't be surprised if that was him up there, bailing out his partner in darkness the moment it was possible. Now, you may point out that Grogar would have to have been in the stars for far longer than Nightmare Moon was in the moon, but this isn't a problem. We already know for a fact that Gusty the Great can cast spells that last much longer than 1,000 years. Her wind spell and force field on Mount Everhoof are still going to this day. She cast those before the Tree of Harmony was even planted, so it's possible she was drawing from an ancient, deeper magic, one that could last far longer than even the elements of harmony. And wait a second, I didn't think of this. If the spells on Mount Everhoof are still going, then Grogar shouldn't be free. He should still be a constellation. It just doesn't make sense that one spell would wear off without the other.
That's where an idea of my own might be of some help.
Dr. Wolf, what are you doing here?
I saw my name scribbled over your door and happened to overhear your predicament.
I still haven't taken that down?
Would you happen to know how that strange sign got there?
You said you might be able to help?
Actually, yes. A while back during the video, Why Does Grogar Need Cozy Glow, I suggested a theory as to why Grogar had waited so long to act. And really, the answer may lie within an unintended consequence of Cozy Glow's actions during the Season 8 finale, School Rays. She used 6 relics to create a mystical magnet, drawing in magic like a vacuum. All over Equestria, magic was starting to fail. Unicorn spells, Pegasi weather manipulation, even whatever kind of magic ponies were using to keep cupcakes from spoiling. And we see other creatures like the cockatrices losing their magic as well. Now, the Student 6 were able to stop Cozy Glow before she removed all magic from Equestria, and everything was turned back to normal soon after. But what if during those few days, whatever magic which was holding Grogar back had weakened just enough for him to make his return? It would certainly help explain why someone as powerful as Grogar is shown to be hasn't attempted to reconquer Equestria until the beginning of Season 9.
That's a good point. Spells were one of the first things to go. Gusty's magic would have been diminished long enough for Grogar to escape, but it would have returned before he was able to find where his bell was hidden and take it back. Maybe Cozy Glow's actions are what brought about that perfect opportunity Grogar was speaking of.
Oh, glad to hear that you think this theory has merit. Last time you and I were discussing theories, you seemed to make it a point to prove them wrong. I admit this feels like a nice change of pace.
Not sure what gave you that idea. It was then that I vowed that if I can't have this theory, then neither can Dr. Wolf. But yeah, I appreciate your help so much. Thanks for dropping by, Doc.
Glad to be of service. Seriously though, where did this sign come from?
Anyway, this puts an interesting spin on what we already know about Grogar. He says he's been biding his time, watching the forces of good win over and over again. I just assumed he was observing all those villains' defeats through his crystal ball, but maybe that whole time he was looking down from the sky. Not much else to do when you're a constellation, so it turns out this does work with Grogar's timeline after all. let's review. Gusty the Great steals Grogar's spell and casts him into the stars. There he stays as the constellation Aries. After some time, Sky Prison gets a new inmate, Nightmare Moon. 1,000 years later, once her banishing spell wears off, Grogar aids in her escape, but is still himself trapped. He watches each of the main six's victories and keeps tabs on the losers, forming his plan to beat the main six at their own game. His opportunity arrives when Cozy Glow sucks almost all the magic out of Equestria, finally freeing him from his stellar prison. And here we are. We've come full circle, the newest details solving the oldest mysteries. But what do you guys think? Was Grogar the group of stars that aided in Nightmare Moon's escape? Was he even imprisoned in the stars? If not, how did Gusty the Great banish him? I can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. And thanks to Dr. Wolf for the help. No hard feelings, I hope. This has been the Brony Notion, signing out until next time. Brohoof.
I don't know.